Captions are a critical part of the process for photographers for a variety of reasons. It's crucial that your images have accurate and complete captions. We're going to use the Associated Press style for caption writing because it's commonly used by photographers and allows for a simple recipe for creating thorough and complete captions. So captions serve multiple functions. They give context and meaning to an image. By itself, an image may be unclear. Who is in the photo? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? Why do we care? Captions should answer all of those questions. So, for example, look at this photo. Can you tell just by looking at it what's it about? Is it compelling to you? Can you tell what's going on in the image? On its face, I would argue it's unremarkable visually. It's a nice moment, perhaps between a woman and a child, but it's unclear what their relationship is or why we should even care. The photo is not extraordinary visually. Perhaps you would describe the photo as unremarkable. But what if I give you some context? What if I show you this caption? Quote, "I love this child, though she'll grow up to treat me just like her mother does." And if I tell you that the quote is from the maid in this image, and that in fact the woman is a maid and she's holding the child that she cares for, does that change your relationship with the picture? Do you care more about it? Are you more connected because of the caption? What if I tell you more about the image? What if I tell you that it was taken by a South African photographer during apartheid in the 1960s, and that the photographer, Ernest Cole, had to leave South Africa and would later die in New York City in poverty? That the images from this collection of photos that this photo is taken from were basically lost and were rediscovered decades after his death and were then part of an exhibit. Does knowing all that, does knowing that it's from apartheid South Africa, does knowing what happened to the photographer, does knowing the relationship between the woman and the girl, does that change how the picture connects to you? I'm hoping that it does. I'm hoping that you feel differently about the photo because of knowing more about what's in it, and that the caption itself gives that photo context. Good captions give you credibility. If you're a photojournalist, it signals you are more than a photographer, but instead a journalist who works with a camera. For other kinds of photographers, it proves that you understand the process and assists your client or your employer in understanding the work that you are providing. Bad captions. Bad captions can be a disaster. If you misspell a name, it is an embarrassment to you, to your employer, and to the subject. Misspellings in captions make their way into print and online. Getting the facts wrong usually happens when we are lazy or simply make assumptions without confirming them. What is the official name of the organization? Is the address a street or a boulevard? Are you accurately describing the event or circumstance? Do you have someone's name spelled correctly? There are many, many, many examples of how not to write a caption. Here's a couple of examples. What do you see wrong in some of these? These were pulled from a variety of local newspapers over the past few years. Right? So this is how not to do it. Here's a photo in a community newspaper of a bunch of kids, and the caption, in case it's hard to read on your screen, "Friends school teacher Nick Jackson bakes cookies with 4th grade students Katie Loomis Adams, Katie Volts, Sinclair McDaniel, and Sloan Dalby." You know, the obvious mistake, there's what, a dozen kids in this photo, and we've only named 4 of them. How embarrassing if you're one of those kids who isn't named. Realistically, in a group this large, you probably wouldn't be able to get all their names, but why would you randomly point out just some of the children? And then also notice that the photo says that they're baking cookies when in fact they're not. They're simply posing, right? They already baked the cookies. They baked the cookies in the past. They're about to put cookies in the oven, whatever it might be. Be accurate. Don't describe something that's happening when it isn't. It makes you look silly and it diminishes your credibility. Here's a local high school soccer team. The caption reads, "Although the Indians were without forward Crystal Header, pictured above, they were able to handle West Virginia Wesleyan." Well, if they were without her, how is she pictured above? What's going on in this picture? What's not clear? What were you trying to say as the photographer or the caption writer? Make sure captions are clear. Make sure they make sense. Participants at last year's fair. Well, who are they? They have names. They're real people. They were there for a reason. This also becomes useful when you're thinking about archiving photos. Photos are more valuable if you have more information about them. You might shoot something and a year later or 10 years later get a call and someone's looking for a specific person or a specific event or a specific moment. If your captions are accurate and complete, your photos are more likely to be usable and more valuable. This photo is captioned Sydney Fitzgerald and Chris Lehau of fraternity Alpha Phi Omega present Penn State President Graham Spanier with a check. When in fact only 2 people are in this photo. Presumably Graham Spanier is on the right and maybe that's Sydney Fitzgerald on the left, and we're missing Chris Lehau. If you're in a position of designing a website or a print publication, if you're laying out photos, make sure that you're captioning the photo as it's going to appear in print. My guess is that poor Chris Lehau got left out of this photo because it was cropped. And maybe he is off to the left, but we as readers don't see him. So don't make the mistake of using a caption without comparing it to how the photo is actually going to be published. Samantha Myers brought younger sister along. I imagine these sisters for years have laughed about this photo. One of them is named and one of them isn't, but it's also embarrassing and perhaps even a little bit hurtful to the sister who didn't get her name in the newspaper. So again, be complete, be accurate. Take the time to ask people how they spell their names. Don't assume Myers is M-Y-E-R-S. It could easily be M-E-Y-E-R-S, for example. And again, look at the photo the way we're going to look at it. From right to left, the director of the Office of Personnel Management, John Barry, Marcus Williams, and Marcus's mother, when in fact, as we look at the photo, it's not right to left, but it's left to right. These kinds of mistakes are pretty easy to make, but they're also just an example of either not paying attention or laziness or being in a hurry, and they diminish our credibility. Captions are searchable. And this really is huge. If you Google something or search for something on the internet, you're not searching for a photo by what it looks like. You're searching for it by what content is connected to it, what kind of text is connected to it. And we call all of that information metadata, data about data, and all of that becomes searchable not just on the internet, but also on our computers. The caption information you attach to your photo becomes the way photos are indexed and organized. It means it is much more likely someone will find your photo online, and it makes finding photos in your archive much, much easier. The caption explains and informs the image. Captions are digitally attached to the image, so they travel with it as you send photos by email or post them online. You can add captions using a variety of programs, and depending which class you're in, you may have access to a different set of software. Some students in our programs will be using Photo Mechanic. We also have Lightroom and Photoshop, and each of them allows you to add captions in slightly different ways. If you add a caption in one program, it will be visible in other programs. There is a consistent set of rules about how captions are applied and stored. That data is accessible by a variety of programs. So let me show you how this might work. In Photo Mechanic, you might be looking at a series of images in this thumbnail view, and if you roll over any individual image, you'll see this little I button, and that I button brings up this what we call IPTC field, and there's a place for description/caption, and this already has a caption added to it. You could add a caption here, highlight it, you could copy it, go to the next image and paste it, which I've already done. But you could then paste the same caption into multiple images. You also in Photo Mechanic can select all your images, bring up the caption field, whatever that might be. This is a caption, so if this is the caption you had typed, and you then could apply it to a group of images all at once. You could apply it to all of them simultaneously, which I'm not going to do since I've already captioned these images. Photo Mechanic is a pretty easy and useful way to caption images quickly. You can also caption images in Photo Mechanic as you copy images into your computer off of your card, so they can be pre-captioned before you start to work. Another great feature of Photo Mechanic is it has spell check. Oops, if I can. So if I spell something wrong, oops, it wants to correct it. but if it doesn't, it will tell me that it's wrong by underlining it. And so I can then look it up inside of Photo Mechanic. So it will either auto-fix it as you're writing, or it will at least let you know if it thinks something is spelled incorrectly. That's a great feature inside of Photo Mechanic. In Lightroom, it works pretty much the same way. I've got this same folder of images, and you'll notice as I click on any one of them, over here in the caption field is the same caption. If I were to change the caption here, it would automatically update to the original file, and it would change in Photo Mechanic. Lightroom also offers the ability to group caption and to caption upon import. It does not have spell check. And then there's Photoshop. If you're working on an image in Photoshop and you bring up the file info under File, again, you'll see the captions here. Photoshop does not allow you to apply a group caption, and it doesn't have spell check, but it's an easy and simple way to apply a caption. Notice that in Photoshop, caption is called description. Also notice all these other fields. You are welcome in our class to add information to any of these fields. You can start applying keywords, which makes things searchable. You can certainly put your name in the copyright notice field. You can come down here and see that automatically the kind of camera that was used is already embedded in the file information, but you can add a headline or instructions, transmission reference. All this other stuff is useful for different kinds of applications. For our use, for our classes, we are only going to be looking at the description or caption field, and that's the only place I'm going to be looking when I go to grade your work. So make sure your caption is in this field, which in Photoshop is called description, and which in Photo Mechanic is called description/caption, and which in Lightroom would be called caption. So a little bit confusing, but those are the same fields and they're interchangeable between the three programs. My own workflow is when I initially insert my card and copy that onto my computer is to apply a basic caption that at least describes the assignment. It might include the day and the date, and then I can go into specific images and add specific details. It's important not to skimp on this step. It's easy to want to rush through captioning, but for our class, it's important in terms of your grade, and more importantly, as a photographer or someone who might use photography professionally, you want your images to be searchable. You want to be able to find them, and you want them to be accurate. So if you take a little bit extra time up front, down the road, it makes your life much easier. I've been asked in the past to find images that were 10 or 15 years old, and those that were captioned properly show up in a matter of minutes. Other images can require much more digging, or perhaps are lost forever because I don't remember when I took them, and they're not showing up when I try to search for things. In terms of how we're going to caption, what an accurate and complete caption should look like, as I said, we're going to use the Associated Press style for caption writing. The AP, if you're not a journalist, is the largest news gathering organization in the country. And they have a style for proper grammar, they have style for writers, but they also offer a standard style for writing captions that's used by many news organizations and by many public relations and advertising firms as a way to create a consistent and simple kind of caption form. An AP caption typically has 2 sentences or perhaps 3 sentences. The first sentence is written in the present tense and describes basically the who, the what, the where, and the when of a photo. Who's in the photo? Where are they? When was the photo taken? What's happening in the photo? So in this example, the subject's name is Richard Alley. He's a professor at Penn State, and this photo was taken in his office. So we write Dr. Richard Alley in his office in the Dickey building on the Penn State University Park campus on April 17th, 2017. So we have the date, we have the year, we could include the day of the week if we wanted to. We certainly have the location, and we have the name of the subject. If he were doing something more active, we would describe that. If he were actually writing on the chalkboard instead of just standing there, we would describe that. If he were hitting a ball or running down the field or kissing his wife or whatever it might be, all of that would be described in the first sentence. The second and third sentence, if necessary, answer really the why question. Why is this photo interesting? Why should we care? What's going on in the photo? Context that gives the photo meaning. So here we have Ali is a Nobel Prize-winning scientist and an expert in the field of climate change. So that explains why he's interesting. He's famous and well-known. And it turns out he is also a registered Republican, a rarity on college campuses in the United States. So this was an assignment for a magazine that was doing a story about scientists who are Republicans, which is not common according to studies at universities around the U.S., and what it's like to be a Republican in an environment that is at least perceived as being liberal and tends to be predominantly filled with registered Democrats, I guess. So those last two sentences, and that could have been written as one sentence, I suppose, gives the context and explains why this photo matters. And then finally, we always end with our photo credit, and that's important too. It's not just a matter of ego. Who took the photo might influence how we look at the photo. So if the photo was by a public relations person from the university, we might look at the photo differently. If the photo were taken by Richard Ali's wife or child, that would be a different way of looking at the photo. So who took the photo is valuable information. And if you're keeping track of your own photos, you certainly want to make sure that you're getting credit and that people know who took the photograph that they're looking at. Writing complete, accurate captions is going to help you in the long run by helping you stay organized, by making your photos more valuable. Knowing when and where a photo is taken will be useful to potential clients. Put the word wedding in all your wedding images, and you can find those images with a simple click of the button. Identify photos with keywords, and your search quickly becomes useful when you're looking for a specific kind of image. If you become a nature photographer, then all your lion photos would come up with a click. All your photos from Yellowstone could come up with a click. Become a wedding photographer, and you could sort your photos quickly by bride or by groom, by location, by that kind of thing. Being able to search for photos will speed up your workflow and make you more efficient. So make good work habits. Learn to caption accurately, not just because it's required for the class, but because it will make your photos more valuable and will ultimately, in the long run, make your life that much easier.